I'm Neil Graham. Welcome to the Lowdown number 30. This week, I speak with Ryan Egusquiza, who works with Giant Loop, the Bend, Oregon-based manufacturer of motorcycle luggage. But before we dive in, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY motorcycle fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brake rotors, lights, entire exhaust systems, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Now, on to my conversation with Ryan.
I was just looking at your Instagram, Ryan, and you really seem to be living the ultimate woodsy lifestyle in Oregon. So what do you do in your spare time? Let's start there.
I definitely do the woodsy stuff in Bend. I grew up in Los Angeles, so I had to always escape maybe 1 to 2 hours away to get into the woods, if you'd even call them that. Moved to Bend 7 years ago, and I live the stereotypical Bend lifestyle. I touch a bit on everything, whether it's stuff that I brought with me, like I've done my whole life, like bicycles and motorcycles. Picked up like paddleboarding, a little bit of rock climbing, a little bit of running. So yeah, I live that stereotypical Bend lifestyle, but there's always a focus typically on two wheels. Like if I'm bored, nothing to do, the default is always like hop on two wheels. That's kind of how my adult life has gone. It's just easier than ever. We have it so good here in Oregon. Like this weekend, Saturday did like a 150-mile dual sport ride, met up with a group, and then Sunday I did a mountain bike ride, and then came back, barbecued on the back porch of the house. And yeah, it's extremely easy to have fun and also great for being the home base of Giant Loop.
The Lowdown Show is presented by advrider.com and supported by ebaymotors.com.
What's the challenge in making off-road luggage? And tying things to motorcycles I've always found it incredibly complex. And I've ridden a wide range of motorcycles, from 1940s Indians to modern sport bikes to dirt bikes to trail bikes to everything in between. And it's never a simple process to strap shit on your motorcycle, is it?
It's never simple. However, it is really simple in the way that like we've defined, like in our experience and our thing, we've defined the category we want to be in. So like dual sport and adventure bikes, so we're removing street and certain bikes out of our main bikes. When you take it down to a couple categories, it's super easy. And it's something that Harold, figured out in 2008, 2009. It's easier than most people think it is. And that's part of the job that I do. People have think it's a big complex problem, fitting a bike or mounting it up. And I say, no, really, it's just, there's a handful of ways any piece of motorcycle luggage, whether it's ours or our competition, fits on a bike. So let me show you how easy it is. So it is easy to mount, but it takes a lot of time and experience to get a really reliable mounting system and a process to do it and making your products reliable. But it's more simple than people think if you're choosing a category. Now, if we went into street bikes and touring and all this and that is complicated. Oh my gosh. But yeah, we're sticking to our category that we know best and we compete best in. But yes.
Okay. So I go out and buy a R1300 GS.
Yes.
Adventure, the one with the Hyundai-sized fuel tank.
And the new Overland storage plates on it, and yeah, that's
right. And let's say I'm going to ride a long way. Say I'm going to go past the Starbucks and keep going.
Yes.
Why should I buy those big aluminum panniers that come with that look the business? Should I buy those or should I do something else? What's your argument against buying giant metal boxes to carry your junk on a motorcycle?
I'd say there's a decent argument for them. I think what we've said, and we've sort of the script that we've used, and I think we believe in, is like, if you're doing shorter rides, you're commuting to work, maybe bad weather pretty often, they're great. They're lockable. They put a few things on them. But as soon as you start riding off-road where you're going to tip that bike over often, You're going to need a little bit of storage space sometimes. You're going to need a lot of storage space sometimes, right? Depending on what you put in there. That's where soft luggage really is much better. And I've heard this story from other people. Like, my story is being created by other people's experiences, really. You know, I've started my own, but as soon as you start going off road, it's sand, mud, things are dirty, of course, and you're going to fall over, you're going to hit things, you know, you're going to need to expand and grow and take things on and off pretty quickly. Like, soft luggage is the way to go. It's not as pretty. It doesn't hold its shape as well as hard boxes. I mean, there's something aesthetically pleasing about hard boxes. They look cool, right? And we have to realize that most OEMs, or a lot of the OEMs, like you mentioned, BMW, they're a European company. European access to off-road is so much more limited than North America, Australia, Canada. So it makes sense. It makes sense. They do touring boxes. The Japanese is kind of a mix, but it makes sense. And OEMs don't even make luggage themselves. They just partner with companies like TourTech and GV and SW Motec. So that aside, soft luggage, as soon as you start going off-road, you're going to beat your bike up. And if you have one crash with a hard box and you break it, that may be what you needed to learn your lesson.
You are listening to a cat meow in the background.
How do you develop a gear at Giant Loop? What's the process?
Take an existing product we've had for a couple of years, look at what works, what didn't work, what the failure points are. And then as we have our product, every time we get a request from like an email or our own, like, we'll write it down somewhere and log it so that we know in the future we may want to add this buckle, this zipper, this connection point. So take that data that we've acquired after years of having a product out in the market. And by that time, typically after a couple of years, we've had new suppliers for materials and colors. So take an existing product, make a few changes. The product you developed years ago, the intended use that we tried to market it may not have gone that way. It may have gone a different direction, or most of the customers were using it in a different way. So make the product, the new version, like, apply to them more. So tank bags, you know, we used to do sewn tank bags. And then people complained about waterproofness and zipper quality and mounting. So, like, make a great product and then listen to the feedback ourselves and other people. And then the next version, as technologies have gotten better and supplier relations have gotten better, like, join those two together and harmoniously make something a little bit better. Try to keep the prices in check, of course, but yeah, that's kind of how the process has worked with Giant Loop. I mean, it's pretty simple, at least on the inside, I believe, but it's not as simple as that.
Well, I'm sure it's not. I mean, one of my beefs against products, and since we're talking about motorcycles, we can make motorcycle products, but and I'd be curious to know your experience, is that, you know, typically you buy something and after a couple of days you think, why did they do that? Like, why is that zipper, you know, the zipper gets caught in the whatever, you know, doodad, and it's like, that's kind of dumb, you know, and yet they've been selling this thing for 8 years. It's just, there's so many products, and it seems like there's a lot of companies really resist feedback. I mean, they say, you know, the marketing, you know, their marketing stuff says we listen to you, like phone companies, but they really don't. They really just want to make what they make, and you shut up and buy it. And I mean, I think most of us have had that experience with some kind of, you know, whether it's a car where you think, well, why did they put that switch? You know, it's behind the shifter. I can't reach it, or I can't see the light when I'm driving, or I think you know what I mean. I mean, how seriously do you take feedback from customers when you're either re-examining existing products or thinking of new ones?
I think we take it seriously. I think that we know there's limitations on how quickly we can change and adapt, because we most likely agree that that's an issue. It's just we have to wait a year or two to change it. So, you know, we take it seriously. In my experience, at least with Giant Loop, we take it seriously. We just know that there's like a timeline of when we can fix it and create it. But we do take it seriously. And if a customer's seen that problem, we've probably seen it ourselves, right? Like, we are pretty hard on our own products, as hard as we can be, where our testers have seen it. And sometimes the product has already been made and designed, and then you find that one small thing, right? So we just keep track of it. And then if it's the next production cycle, so like 6 months, 8 months down the road, hopefully we can change it, sometimes a year or two later. But yeah, we we know. So I think every company knows things need to get changed. They just have to wait until the next cycle. So we're chomping at the bit to like get it changed, but we know that like, well, it costs money to make new products and change it in design time. So like we want it changed ourselves so badly, but we just have to live with that small thing for a little while. But typically the response is we try to relate to people as much as possible. Say, you know, I totally understand. That's a thing. Thank you for your feedback. Like, you know, we appreciate that kind of stuff. So we're usually always very kind and gentle with that kind of feedback. And we do keep track of it, but there's limited time to do that. And there's a million things we want to change. So it's a priority level of how many complaints you hear, how many issues, and also whose opinion matters most, right, in the design. The big boss says change it, it happens immediately. If I say it's an issue, it takes a little longer. Just how companies work.
For this 7th inning stretch, we'll revert to a few words from our sponsor. Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finishing tuning up your engine with a part you found on eBay. And that's when you realize, you know what? I could use a brake upgrade. So what do you do next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Rotors, lights, even entire exhaust systems. It's all there. And you've got eBay guaranteed fit. If you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or major modification. You've got it, especially when parts are a guaranteed fit. So when you dive into your next motorcycle project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love and guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Now back to my conversation with Ryan.
My first experience with Giant Loop was at the magazine I worked at. We received, and this probably was, when did the company start? 2009?
08, 09, yeah.
08. So it would have been right at the beginning, and we received this very orange horseshoe-shaped bag, and none of us kind of knew what to do with it. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, which way does it go? Do you put it in the front of you, behind you? And so when you come out with something, there's this design principle, sort of I can't remember exactly what it is. It's the most advanced yet acceptable. That's it. Most advanced yet acceptable. And has there been a degree with Giant Loop, and perhaps this is in the years before you were there, but in sort of educating people about how it works, because it's not self-evident when you first see it, mm-hmm. exactly how the componentry works. How much is education a part of what you do?
Well, education is a big part of it, and brands brands who do a better job educating customers, you know, how it mounts, how the accessories are, the more successful you are. And we've noticed that with ourselves as well as competition. But going back to you getting that bag from the get-go, as far as like Harold has mentioned this a million times to me, like without ADV Rider, Giant Loop would not exist. So without ADV Rider, Giant Loop wouldn't exist. Like we could not have done it without ADV Rider years ago. Of course, I'm not the one on the forums and answering stuff. I touch on it a little bit, but like without ADV Rider, Giant Loop. So my understanding is like Harold posted something on a site called ADV Rider, a bag, and then people commented and wanted more. And the education started with the forum back then, and then
interesting, yeah.
Moved to photos and videos and YouTube. So brand education is super important to brand growth and just educating people. Like, I have this horseshoe, how does it work? And I can tell you here, like, most bikes fit the same. This one video applies to a KLR as it does a T7, but you have to tell people that and break it down simply, because right. they don't know. Like, I know that like you can just throw any bike in any bag and I'm like, yes or no. It fits like all the others, like nonchalantly and like relaxed. But most people are like, it's so overwhelming until they do it a couple times. And then it becomes easy. But you have to find ways to educate them and find them, whether it's like Instagram, YouTube, ADV Rider, store, of course. But yeah, education, got to do that.
Hey, it's the Lowdown Show.
So if I come up, say I'm somebody at a show, and I come up to you and I say, well, you know, I'm thinking about the OEM hard bags, which, as you rightly state, are not OEM made, but they're OEM, you know, compatible.
Yeah.
Or SW Motec, or any of these other companies that you mentioned as your competitors. I mean, what's for the audience listening right now? What's the Giant Loop pitch? What do you guys think that your stuff is better than the other stuff? What is it?
Our tagline is "Go light, go fast, go far," and that's something that we has been there since the beginning.
So that would rule out anybody on a KLR if you said go fast, right?
They're fun.
Is that a cheap shot?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's going on 30 plus years or whatever. So, Giant Loop started with the principle of like doing a giant loop, right? Instead of doing small loops locally, Harold and friends wanted to do a giant loop.
I never put that together until right now. Yeah, I thought it was something to do about like a strap, like you make a big loop.
Yeah, that's how it started. Just make a giant loop, going and doing a giant loop. And then I don't know exactly when the tagline was created, but it's been there 2010, 2012. Go light, go fast, go far. So go light, light as possible. That way you can go faster and farther in your day, be less fatigued. Our concept applying to products is lighter, less to fail, less complex, less bulky. And I think that is a design approach we try to apply to everything. Less complex, really, just least amount of straps and buckles. Our big thing, and it stayed the same, is the harness and the bags, especially for like the bigger bags on the rear. They're one solid piece. So it's a platform with the bag material sewn directly to it versus a harness where you slide a bag in.
Right.
We're going to, as far as I know, we're going to keep that. At the end of the day, our product ends up being half the weight of the other option with holsters and straps and doohickeys. If you say you had a 25 inches of width on the rear of the bike or 30 inches of width of luggage, we're going to put 60 liters, whereas the 3 bags from other brands are like 40 liters. So more usable space in the same outer dimensions. That's a big part of it. And of course, lighter weight. So
the Lowdown Show is presented by advrider.com and supported by ebaymotors.com.
My test for luggage is this, which is it's getting dark. You've got a flat. You're in a cranky mood and you need to get to your tools. And how quickly can you do that?
It's good.
And like one of my pet peeves, and this isn't really so much an issue with off-road bikes, but typically bikes with saddlebags, panniers, open, with a clamshell design.
Yeah.
Which has to be the stupidest thing, because would you go into a hotel room with your Samsonite luggage, stand your suitcase up straight and open it? Well, no, you'd lay it down.
Yeah.
And so, especially on on a motorcycle on a side stand, so the left side, you open it and everything falls out.
Yep.
I mean, that has to be, and that has been the standard. And this is, I think, where this so much with motorcycle and any product design in any discipline, there's this groupthink that takes place. And I don't know if it's because it looks better or because it's easier to make or something. But I've been so frustrated by traditional, say, sport touring bikes, which is what I'm referring to, would have that. And it's like, this is so dumb. So the fact that a bag opens from the top, even OEM stuff, is certainly a step forward. But I know that, I've ridden big bikes off-road, as have you, I suspect. And pretty much everybody hooks one of those solid bags on something at some point. And then, it's a 4-inch tree and you're trying to get around it and you got your body English, but you kind of don't, compensate or the tree snaps back and you're stopped dead. And sometimes that is just really bad. And so you kind of want stuff that can kind of take a whack or take a brush or will give to some degree. That's kind of where you guys are, is it not?
Yeah, it should give. It should be flexible. It should, if it bends, you can still, or partially breaks, you can still use it for the rest of your trip, right? You don't have to use like a ton of bungees to fix it. Like if it fails, you have a small failure and you address it when you get home from your trip, or you just tape it up real quick and you're good to go. I've been lucky. I haven't really destroyed a pair of soft panniers or big bags. A couple of us in the companies have definitely just like whacked a car or like a tree or something and just like blew things apart, right? That's kind of a good test. If you whack something at like 30 miles an hour, what happens? Luckily, most people haven't gotten hurt doing it, but yeah, it should take a beating, and a lot of it does. We have to think about the whole world, right? We design products and we sell it around the world. We do think first about our country, the West Coast specifically, and our own territory, and even our competition, that are based close as well. Like it has to work well on our own home base, which is narrow, windy, random rocks, random trees. They'll grab your stuff. So, we have our own home base to test it. But yeah, the last thing you want is all your stuff just torn apart on the trail, and then you're stuck. It's getting dark or gonna get dark, and you're 60 miles from the campsite and hot shower. So, soft is good. It's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people. And it's grown so much in the past 15, 20 years that it's worked well in our favor. But at least I kind of got into venture riding kind of in the 2018, 2019. So it had already been established. But from what I've heard from Harold and other employees that have been around doing it longer, like originally, when those first GSs came out and soft luggage 20 years ago, like there were very few people using it. It was an adventure. It was harder to find. Like the people that had it on their bike were like true enthusiasts. But now, like you'd mentioned with overlanding, there's much lower barrier to entry to getting a bike, to getting the luggage, to getting educated, to putting rotopacks and ladders all over your van. Like it's easier than ever before. So it's great for us, but the market has changed significantly. It used to be really hard to do, and it was core, and now it's much more open, and pretty much anyone can do it. So you get a lot of newer riders versus the hardcore grungy riders that used to do it that were so just into it.
Does that pose a problem as a manufacturer that you have some people that are super hardcore and are very demanding on their luggage to those who are much more casual? Because obviously with making stuff, you have to be keenly aware of your price point. So you can't or I would think you wouldn't want to overbuild something that's going to get light use, and you can't piss off those guys who really do go to Belize. So I mean, is that because I've never worked in a company like yours, so I don't know what the discussions are, but is that something do you ever talk about stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. Price point's a big part of it. The biggest thing is, we come up with a price point that we think is good and competitive and good value for the money, but we're taking that into account with like 10 other competitors. 8 of them or 7 of them are all almost brand new, right? And they have a different business model, or there's just so many varying types of luggage on the market, and different sales channels that they're available, whether it's direct to consumer, dealers, distributors. So it's a very complicated and confusing market, and every country is different. So you try to find something that works best for everyone. But we see a new competitor every day, and our competitors see a new competitor every day. And we can look at something and immediately I could say, oh, okay, that one pannier has 7 of the 10 features are just like all the other brands. And I could look at this and I can say, I think I know where it's going to fail. I guess it's going to be heavier light. Like it's pretty easy to spot that stuff, but there is a trend towards less expensive, lower quality, I'd say these days, because there's so many new people getting on the market. So that's where Giant Leap has to, fight to survive and show that like we have a good price. It's really durable. It's lightweight. This is why you should choose Giant Loop. But, it's hard to get the messaging out. There's so many, like people are getting hit left and right with all the other brands. So, we try to find something in the middle. It's the best we can do, for sure.
Because everything kind of looks the same. Now you would look at it with a different eye than I would necessarily, because you work in that business. But the problem is that when you look at stuff and it's first of all, it's new and it looks nice, but you really don't get a sense of what it is until you use it, until you really use it. And then, it's kind of too late because you've already bought it. Like one of the things that I'm always, gone off on a few times to friends, which is the whole notion of waterproofing. Because I have found that very few things in life, including my house, are waterproof. Water resistant, yes, but not waterproof. And it's like any kind of motorcycle gear. You live in a soggy part of the world, it especially north of you, it's this that, I remember riding in BC and I thought my gear was waterproof and it wasn't. So how do you, like, I know this is kind of an absurdly simple question, but how do you make sure your stuff's waterproof? First of all, is it, and how do you test it?
If we say it's waterproof, it's waterproof. And basically, whether it's a dry bag, like a Mojave saddle bag, or dry pods. So we do sewn bags with the inner liners. if we say it's waterproof, we have a symbol that says 100% waterproof. That means you have rolled it down 3 times and you've clipped it, and then of course that gives you the maximum stated storage. But roll it down 3 times. You can take that bag. You could submerge it in your bathtub for an hour. You can take it whitewater rafting. That's what waterproof means to us. So like our dry bags, like our Tillamook dry bag, it's pretty large. We have a line of them, but a pretty large dry bag with an air purge valve. It's got a couple entries and stuff. But that is when rolled 3 times, which is pretty easy to do. You can take that whitewater rafting with you to Alaska or anywhere, and your stuff is going to stay completely dry.
So if I take my KLR and go whitewater rafting with my KLR,
it'll do. The panniers will give it enough weight, and that bike's pretty heavy. It'll float. So you need enough bag on the front and back.
So did you just say the Giant Loop is also a flotation device for motorcycles?
Well, we did launch that product April of this year. Yes, we do a lot. We do a lot of funny things like that. But yeah, we had the floating adventure bike. I don't even know what it was, but it was the pontoons. So when you're in Africa going across hippo infested waters, you can be fine. But yeah, it's waterproof. If we say waterproof in our testing, it's roll it down, clip it, and then basically leave it in the shower for a long time, dip it in the bathtub. But it is very hard to make things completely waterproof. And if it has a zipper, no, it's not submersible waterproof.
Right.
No zipper is 100% waterproof that we use in adventure luggage. They might be out there for dry suits and stuff, but over time, water will find its way through a zipper. We've always tried to back up our claim. Like if we say it's 100% waterproof in a tank bag, we're giving you a zipper tank bag and you have a dry pod liner as well, like an orange dry pod that you put your essentials in and you clip it inside your tank bag. Your bike can dip over in a river and it's going to stay dry. That's what we mean. But, there's a lot of variation in the industry. And I think with apparel as well, that's really hard, even harder to stay waterproof. But like boots, we stand by our claim. And we found throughout the years, we've found faults in that. So we've had to update the writing we use or update the products. But got to submerge it. Got to let it sit for like an hour in water. See what happens.
Let's wrap things up with a few words from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY motorcycle fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. But it's okay because whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything. Brake rotors, lights, entire exhaust systems, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Thank you for listening to The Lowdown Show.